Welcome to Monologues by Hassie, where I'm going to be dropping unsolicited brain dumps from the depths of my grey matter. I'll talk about life, money, society, and self-development, plus whatever else lies up there, whilst hopefully not getting cancelled in the process. I've been based in the same place for the past 2.5 months, Penang, Malaysia. But in the last month, because I know I'm about to depart Malaysia very soon, I made the effort to take a few trips to a few regional cities. And as part of that preparation, I packed a backpack which I affectionately call Lord Voldemort. And the reason I call it Lord Voldemort is if you've watched the Harry Potter films or read the books, you will know that in the first book, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Professor Quirrell has Lord Voldemort growing out of the back of his head. And this backpack is so large, I call it Lord Voldemort. And the interesting thing about doing these short weekend or sometimes week-long trips and coming back to my day-to-day life in Penang is I noticed when I carried my regular work backpack, which just had my laptop, my tablet, maybe my laptop stand and keyboard, and I did my 10-minute walk to the office, it felt ridiculously light. It was almost like what had been a pretty heavy backpack, because my laptop's quite heavy and all the gear I have is made out of some sort of metal or alloy. It just felt incredibly light, and I realized the reason it was feeling light after I did these trips is because I had Lord Voldemort on my back, and it was this very, very, very heavy backpack, which was at least 10 to 11 kilos, and it made my normal load just feel so much easier. And I thought about that phenomenon, and what I really want to talk about today is why you should go out there and lift a heavy load. And I'm not talking just physically, because I'm talking about going and lifting a mental load, going and doing that tough thing. Because reflecting on that same principle of me taking Lord Voldemort and going on a trip and coming back and realizing that my normal work bag was very light, I've had the same situation when I picked up tickets at work. I would always pick up tickets, so I would try to pick up tickets where I felt uncomfortable, and it's always a hard thing to do. But I remember every time I solved a problem, I would feel amazing. Afterwards, it would increase my repertoire of knowledge. And I remember the very last ticket I worked on at work before I quit my job, I wasn't actually able to solve it in time. But I'm still glad I picked up a complex ticket, because I was dealing with things which, as when you're a software engineer or whatever profession you're in, it was something that is relevant to what I need to be successful in the future. And there have been many times in my life where I have experienced this phenomenon. If I think to the time I ran a marathon, right? I accidentally ran a 42-kilometer marathon, and I have no intentions to really run a marathon again. But because I ran that marathon, I used to be in agony over running a 5-kilometer race. And prior to running a marathon, the longest I'd ever run was about 17 or almost 18 kilometers. And so I went from having only ever run 18 kilometers and doing that once to doing 42. Now this means when I do my runs now, it feels great. Like it can still be challenging. And one thing I've been dealing with living in Asia is the fact that it's currently the dry season, which is coming to an end, but that means that it is like 30 plus degrees every day, and it is very humid. And that's kind of the challenge I've been dealing with now, is saying, screw that, go and run in the heat. And that's kind of the load I'm dealing with now. But I'm not just talking about physical things. Go and do those projects which scare you just a little bit, because by taking on that heavy load, everything you do after that is going to feel much easier. Now, the only big caveat I have is you should never do anything which actually kills you or maims you or is something that you can't recover from. So don't go to the gym and try to deadlift 200 kilos. In fact, when I say lift a heavy load, doing physical stuff is the last thing I'm talking about. I'm talking about go work on that project that you think's too hard and you have no idea how to do. And I have to do that all the time now. Like when I released my meditation app called Illuminate Me, which is still in beta testing, I had no idea about how to develop software, put it into Play Store, and put it on somebody's Android mobile phone. And I'm still learning that because I still have to go through the process of getting it publicly available. But in that entire process, I had to do things which I had never ever done in my career, and which honestly scared me a little bit. And some of these were technical things which had to do with coding the solution. Other things were things like marketing. I had to actually go and make a LinkedIn post, and I had to go and learn some design because I needed the app to look good. And then I had to learn how to create the screens that are used in the App Store. So I had to get on Canva and create these things. And I had to do all these tasks, which I previously were not my job, but they also scared me because I was like, is this too much for me to be doing? And I remember there was one day last month where I said, okay, you're just going to sit down today and you're going to do nothing else but think about how to make beautiful app screens so you can put these on your store listing. How do you make your store listing look professional? And I'm sure if a professional designer watched me do that, it would have been absolutely ridiculous because I simply took too long, or I used the wrong tools or wrong framework, or my work was still imperfect. But nevertheless, I lifted the heavy load, and I'm glad for it because this isn't the last time that I'm going to be creating, for example, an Android application, or more generically, it's not the last time I'm going to be creating a piece of software and selling it and marketing it to somebody. So I'm grateful for the fact that I've gone and done something well outside my comfort zone. And there are so many situations in my life where I've had to deal with this. And being currently self-employed is also one of these situations. It is scary when you see people getting promotions and getting those cool new jobs. But I realize that's also the world that I've decided to take a break for and explore something different. I realize that everything I'm doing right now is lifting the heavy load. And I owe it to myself to put the energy in, to put the effort in, and lift that heavy load. Because I have no idea how I'm going to feel afterwards. But if I base that on all the heavy loads that I've lifted in the past, both physically, mentally, intellectually, spiritually, I know that there will be a sense of lightness afterwards. There will be a sense of ease as I deal with new tasks and new challenges. And the only way to achieve that state is to do something that makes you feel uncomfortable. And here's the thing that we all need to acknowledge. No matter who you are, no matter where you are in life, no matter what stage you're at, no matter how much material, academic, spiritual success you have, there will always be something that is ahead of you that makes you deeply uncomfortable. That feeling is never going to go away. And my prompt to those of you listening to this is, if there is something that is making you uncomfortable, and remember, I'm telling you, this is not something that should be killing you. I'm not asking you to go and do something that is going to physically, mentally, or spiritually harm or maim you. But chances are there's something that is just slightly outside your reach. There is a heavy load that you can pick up, put on your back, and go for a walk with. And I want you to go do that. Because when you do put that load down and you pick up the next thing, which might be something from your day-to-day life, you are going to feel comparatively amazing because you went and picked up the heavy load. So have a think about what it is that you can do that is just outside your reach, which you think is slightly too big of a project, that is going to drive you a little bit crazy if you try to tackle it, and go and do it. Because I know that, for example, even just launching a mobile app and working on the projects that I have going, I am pushing myself because I'm outside my comfort zone. I no longer have the backup of senior engineers who can have the time or the energy to really dedicate to helping with me with my solution. I am reliant on myself. I am reliant on the information that's available online, and thankfully there is a lot of that. And it is a different paradigm. I'm lifting a much heavier load, and I know that, for example, if I step back into another software engineering job, because I've lifted these loads and I've lifted them myself, that I will be able to do even more and go even further. The same way that running is easier now that I've done a marathon, the same way that lifting my work bag and walking to my co-working space feels so effortless because I went on a trip carrying my beloved Lord Voldemort very, very heavy backpack. So I'll end this episode there, and to those of you listening to this, I wish you great success on all your endeavors. You've just made it through another episode of Monologues by Hassie. It brings me great pleasure to know that you made it to the end. To listen to more episodes, subscribe on your favorite podcast app or visit monologuesbyhassie.com. Thanks for swinging by.